Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1035 of our daily content grind. Before we begin, I do want to remind everyone, this channel is running not one but two different contests right now if you go watch my previous videos. Yesterday we posted a review of Blocky's Series 1 Transformers, which was a great amount of fun, and I thank them for the opportunity. But we're doing a giveaway there that you can sign up for by watching that video and finding out the details. And then there is the one that I'm running all on my own, which is for the Alpha Trion and Orion Packs 2-pack from a couple years ago. That one is one of my more standard contests. You have 1 week left to enter. That video was posted a week ago if you want to find out those details. As always, I've kept them simple. That said, 5 people already messed it up. But that's fine. Most of you got it right. But yeah, I'm giving away a bunch of free stuff if you have not paid attention to the channel. So go back, watch those. Please participate in those. Would mean a lot to me. I just want to give you stuff. That's all. So let's talk about Cliffjumper today, shall we? So this was a running gag in the fandom for a long time because for a while it just seemed like Cliffjumper got neglected because whenever Cliffjumper would come up with a brand new toy, it wasn't really a brand new toy. It was Bumblebee. Sometimes, most of the time, it was just Bumblebee in red. And that was it. No new head sculpt, no nothing. Just a Bumblebee repaint. Because let's admit, Cliffjumper in the G1, not a bad character, but very forgotten compared to Bumblebee. And when the original toys are so similar, Hasbro and Takara really aren't going to go out of their way to amend that in any way, shape, or form. So I thought, let's actually collect it all. Let me actually see just how many times this has happened. And the results are kind of surprising and unsurprising at the same time. This video probably would have been out a little bit earlier than you'll probably see it, because every time I thought I was done, I would double check and find more. So we're going to start where this started, and that is with the Classics Bumblebee redone into Cliffjumper in 2006. This one was no surprise because G1 toys were absolutely a brand new thing. As far as like getting brand new versions of them in stores, and Bumblebee missed all of the previous collector-based stuff. Missed Universe, missed all of the homaging in the Unicron trilogy, missed, he missed alternators. So this was the first time we got a Cliffjumper, so we weren't really surprised in the least. When Bumblebee just got redone into Cliffjumper as a straight repaint. I actually checked to see if Takara ever put out a more accurate one that didn't have like the weird silver on this one. Nope. This was the only one. That said, I don't mind the look. It's that more modern Deco Classics was going for. It doesn't look bad though. If you want something a little bit more traditional, there was the Legends class Bumblebee that was redone into Cliffjumper straight up again. This one really, like, some of these repaints actually do make an effort to include more Cliffjumper elements like gray on the arms, but this one literally just kind of feels like they took the Bumblebee figure and just replaced the yellow with red in the mold. Now, this one does have blue windows. I believe black windows were the thing on the original. I believe it has a little bit more color on the forearms, but still, you get my point. A lot of the times it really was just, let's swap the yellow plastic for red plastic and call it a day. This was the first Legends attempt at a G1 Bumblebee turned Cliffjumper. The Generations line did it with the War for Seibertron figures. This one at least got a new head. Let's give them credit for that. A lot of the times when we do this, you're going to notice it's the exact same head. And if you want to know the difference, if you cannot tell the difference between them, just in case, Bumblebee is going to have like ridges across his forehead, but more often you'll notice by the horns, whereas Bumblebee has these round, pointed kind of devil horns. Cliffjumper has ridges on the sides of his helmet, and his horns are much more squared off and they don't curve. So if you want to spot it, an easy way of spotting the difference, there you go. This mold is not too bad. I think this one works well enough as Cliffjumper. There's the smaller there's the gamer edition, which this of course is one of the more modern examples of it. This one is kind of fun because they had to do with the aligned Cliffjumper head. So again, we got a new head sculpt out of it, which is nice. The fun one here that I thought was coming up, which is why I slipped a little bit. They also did one as a Legends class, and this one is again straight up normal Bumblebee. But they did paint the horns silver, so they actually trying to pass a little bit closer for Prime Cliffjumper in that attempt. But no, we can tell, Hasbro, you cheaped out on this one too. But again, Legends class, low budget, easy to buy figure. Of course, you're not going to get a brand new head sculpt on a Legends class toy. They're made to be cheap. You know, you have to wait and get the more expensive ones, the more high-end figures. Those will assuredly have new tooling. Right? Right? Alternity Cliffjumper is a straight-up repaint. This one's the one that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, number one, it's Takara. You normally expect them to put the effort in. Of course, a lot of the alternative figures didn't get new heads when they sorely needed it. But this one was like, it's a high-end line, you know? Like, it's complex design and engineering. It's scale vehicles and licensed vehicles. There's die-cast parts, metallic paint everywhere on this toy. No budget for a new head. So therein lies your problem. Therein lies your red Bumblebee once more. The more modern example, the one we know most recently, is the Earthrise Cliffjumper. And this is the one where it's an exceptionally rare exception. It's an exceptional exception. Yes, I know I just said that, but I think it's warranted here because this is one of the very, very few times that Cliffjumper came first. This is his mold. And eventually, it was redone into Bumblebee. Not only the Volkswagen Bumblebee that Netflix released, but also is just this toy with yellow and a Bumblebee head. It's a weird situation. I think everyone was weirded out by the fact that Cliffjumper actually got a brand new mold and Bumblebee is the one who had to wait in line. I think weirder still is the fact that they kept the accessories consistent throughout every single release. So multiple Cliffjumpers have that bazooka that he was known for in the first episode. So does Bumblebee. Multiple Bumblebees. So does Goldbug. So does Bugbite. Jeez. Maybe that's why they never did Glyph. Because she's like an archaeologist. She's like a scientist. She doesn't need a bazooka. Smaller Transformers, little novelty ones, aren't safe either. Here's the Alt Modes Cliffjumper, who is straight up a repaint of Bumblebee, right down to like a very roundish vehicle. This one is weird because like this is where you notice like the big problem with a lot of these just straight repaints of Bumblebee. Sometimes he's sculpted to be way too happy. Cliffjumper's not very happy. He's surly and quick-tempered. This is not how I imagine Cliffjumper. You got to catch him on a real good day to see him like this. So that's always the tell. That's always the tell. That said, sometimes they get it a little bit better. They kind of split the difference a little bit. The Bot Shots face sculpt actually does kind of work as both, you know, a mischievous kind of Bumblebee as well as like Cliffjumper's attitude. So in that, okay, that actually works. Apparently works so well in Bot Shots, they did it twice. Both Bumblebee, you know, well, at least two of the Bumblebees ended up being Cliffjumper in this case. It also happened in the Construct Bots line. Now, this is weird because, of course, Construct Bots was just a bunch of generic parts thrown into a box, and you got a head to make it look like a character. Obviously, without that head, this is very hard to parse as any kind of Transformer character you know. Construct Bots was a very weird toy line like that. It was Hasbro trying to do Bionicle, and it didn't work. That said, yeah, most of those parts came off the Bumblebee version, so I'm counting it in this list. Should have clarified from the start. There are a few exceptions to this list, by the way. Contrary to popular belief, the original Bumblebee and Cliffjumper toys, not retools of each other. Completely different molds. I don't know if that's true of subsequent versions of those molds, like the keychain ones. Those might have shared internal parts. We're pretty sure that the the Missing Link versions, we're pretty sure those share internal parts, but we're not counting those because for the majority they are different molds. Okay, so just to clarify, because there are some weird exceptions. Let's move on to some other weird ones, now that that tangent's out of the way. The Q-Transformer Bumblebee, they got turned into Cliffjumper. But this one does have a new head. This one actually does have the head, though admittedly, I think this is just a repaint that was very clever in the fact that the head could pass as both Bumblebee and Cliffjumper, because it's got the forehead ridges, it's got the side ridges, and it's got the horns that can pass for either. So I believe this is just a straight repaint that was very intentional in the fact that, yeah, you're gonna be red eventually. Sorry, Bumblebee. Oh, by the way, as long as we're on the subject of Takara here, if you thought Takara and their higher budgets would actually come to the rescue on some of these and actually turn out to be a little bit more accurate, maybe throw in a new head or two, because they do that a lot. Not the case of Cliffjumper. There's the Legends version that they came up with. Does have a lot more gray, so they did do more effort to change the coloring. And then there's a War for Seibertron, which is just metallic and basically the same. It still makes me laugh that there's no classics or like Henkei version of Cliffjumper. There's no Henkei Cliffjumper. They didn't bother to go back and fix him. See, this is just G1 transforming stuff, by the way, or stuff essentially based on Generation 1 Cliffjumper and Bumblebee that we're talking about at the moment. That doesn't mean that non-transforming was safe either. In fact, I think it was a little bit easier to do in the non-transforming lines. Here's the Robot Heroes. Grainy picture, I will admit. But even then, you can tell this is very happy. This is a very happy Cliffjumper, which is not what you expect. And of course, he does have the Volkswagen parts, the feet, the chest. Yeah, this is where like Cliff is very forced in here. This just ain't Cliff. This ain't Cliff. Hashtag not my Cliff. We could say the same thing about the Creon, but then again, what are you gonna do? It's Creon. The whole point of Creon is to come up with a whole bunch of Lego parts that kind of sort of vaguely look like different Transformers, and then just depending on how you paint them, they can kind of pass for those characters. So yeah, it's a Bumblebee head. They painted the horns, so it's a little bit Prime styled. It's okay. So this one gets in on a technicality, but we will admit this is technically a repaint of a whole bunch of characters. You're not safe just because Hasbro or Takara didn't produce you, by the way. This happens to merchandise all the time, too. Here's Loyal Subjects Cliffjumper, who is obviously just Bumblebee again. At least this time the face is just kind of blank and expressionless, so he doesn't look like he's too happy. He looks dead. He looks dead. Like his eyes desperately needed brighter colors to them. How about the Nano Metal Fig line? So here's the fun part. Like our recent Earthrise Cliffjumper, this one actually came first. You can actually tell in the head sculpt. It's flatter at the bottom, like Cliffjumper's helmet, and it's squared off on the horns. This is Cliffjumper. Like right down, like the ridge on the chest is there. This is Cliffjumper. He's on the list because he becomes Bumblebee in the second wave. That's just kind of how that goes. So there's the other exception I found. There's the other time Cliffjumper came first and Bumblebee had to follow behind him. Oh, but don't worry. There was a fresh Bumblebee mold in the exact same box set that this Cliffjumper came in, which means eventually that one became Cliffjumper too. Because easy repaints. I don't care if it's a little die-cast figure and the details are super soft. You can still tell that it's not Cliff. You just can. Again, budget does not let you escape this fate. MLDX did a Cliffjumper version of their Bumblebee, and of course they came up with a new head, did not come up with new body parts. Chest is still very round. Feet still have the Volkswagen parts. This is a half-efforted attempt at creating a Bumblebee, or a Cliffjumper, which is a shame because, you know, 3.0 is a high-budget toy line. This is like a $50 figure. You'd expect just a few different, you'd expect just a slight more bit of effort so it actually looks like Cliffjumper, right? Nah. Why put that much effort in? Why go that far? Does Kotobukiya do any better? No. This is the most recent example, by the way. This toy literally just came out like last week at Anime Expo. And it does have a different facial expression, but again, the head, or I guess the hood in this case, is very much Bumblebee. Round horns, forehead ridges. It ain't Cliffjumper. It's a weird one. And again, I feel like they just... Though I guess this is kind of the thing they do. They'll change facial expressions for repaint characters, but they won't change, like, head, or I guess in this case, hood details. It's whatever. So, the list would end here if we were talking about G1 Bumblebee and Cliffjumper and their relationships. However, that's not the end of it, is it? Because, of course, this bleeds into every version of Cliffjumper. Except, okay, Energon's kind of safe. I don't think you're going to get a Bumblebee out of that one. But, of course, 07 movie came around. Of course, Cliffjumper got a repaint out of the Bumblebee, and this one has always been horrifying to me. There's something very, like, stretched flesh zombie looking about the face on this one that's always been super creepy to me. This is a very weird looking Cliffjumper. The mold looks fine. I will actually say that, like, for me, personality wise at least, I think the Camaro suits Cliffjumper better than it does Bumblebee. It still has this roundish aspect to it, but it's a expensive muscle car, you know? It's something that kind of suits the Porsche of the original Cliffjumper better than the original Bumblebee. Just my opinion, though. Just my opinion. So this one was, again, obviously a weird take on Cliffjumper. The Legends mold followed suit. It's basically the same idea, just in a much more simple layout. The face here just looks odd. They didn't really bother painting the face. Silver eyes and, like, the Hogan mustache. I don't know, like, that's... I don't know what they're going for with that. I don't know. It's like, he's got like a Paul Tuttle thing going on. Again, gimmicky ones were not safe in this one. So here's the Cyber Slammer. And again, this one didn't really bother as much. This one is still far more in line with, we swapped out the plastic and called it a day. I will say they at least changed the hood a little bit. And tried to do some different detail with the face, but again, it's still that really weird, like, strands of red that just looks ew. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Bumblebee movie also had a Cliffjumper, luckily, because he showed up in the movie for like half a second until he got cut in half. Yeah, this one at least has a new head, so I will give them credit for that. But again, largely it's the same toy, it's the same mold, it's just red now. So of course it makes the list. Here's the funny one to me. This is the Energon Igniter Speed Series figure. And okay, now we've completely lost the plot, okay? I can accept that you're going to do like an action figure or like a figurine of Bumblebee and then repaint it red into Cliffjumper and go, oh, well, there's some Volkswagen parts left over. No one's going to really notice or care. This is just straight up Cliffjumper as a Volkswagen Bug, which is so wrong. This is more harkens to like those weird like variants that they did where, like, yeah, Bumblebee in G1 could appear in red, Cliffjumper could appear in yellow. Just because, like, some releases were super weird like that. But this is just wrong. This feels sacrilegious. It just does. And the Tiny Turbo Changer did the same thing. It's based on the Bumblebee movie, so it's a tiny little Cliffjumper Volkswagen Beetle. It's wrong. It's just wrong. It shouldn't be this way. Movie Cliffjumper, not safe either from the merch. So Titanium's original 3-inch line got one. See here, they actually did a lot more with black and silver to make him much more distinct from how the Bumblebee looked. And you can see a lot more black in the face. As well as that, again, that silver Hogan mustache thing going on. At least that gives it some distinction. And it doesn't look horrifying. I will take that. The Robot Hero also got a repaint. This one just straight up silver. I mentioned it before. This one really is very much in the line of like I switched the yellow for red and called it a day. Now those are the movie ones. We do have one last one to actually throw into the pile though, and that's from Animated. That's from animated, because Activator Bumblebee became Activator Cliffjumper. Again, mercifully with a new head. Because, of course, Cliffjumper's animated head is like 3/4 chin. So we had to make sure that that was represented correctly. Like, his face ends where normal foreheads would end. But he does count. He does count. Now, if I'm totaling all of these up, this is 30 times that Cliffjumper originated life as a Bumblebee mold, or on rare occasion, a Cliffjumper became a Bumblebee. But there are a few things that we'll throw in just for the sake of completion and as for honorable mentions, but these things technically do not exist, such as the Titanium Bumblebee, which again, all they did was switch the yellow paint for the red paint. This one never actually came out. Nor did the real Titanium Bumblebee, which would have been based on his Seibertronian look, and there was a Cliffjumper head sculpt included in the mold. Of course, this one never made it to fruition. The Alternator. I long for this toy because it still looks great. I still want this. Volkswagen plays nice. Like, we missed the 20th anniversary. Can we get, like, just someone to dig this out of, like, mothballs and just make it for the 25th anniversary of Alternators, please? I would like it. I would think that would be a nice little thing to do. There is also the Masterpiece Bumblebee, or Cliffjumper, which is more or less, yeah, the same mold. The vehicle mode parts switched, but this is enough reused stuff for me to go, yeah, they're the same mold. This one is neither confirmed nor denied by Hasbro and Takara. They won't say anything about it. We don't even technically know if this is official or not, or just like a really good knockoff or really good third-party piece that half bootlegged the Masterpiece and just made up the rest. We're not really sure, but it's been in existence for like 2 years now. We still don't know anything about it, other than, like, it looks very complete. We're just waiting to see if it actually decides to exist at some point. That said, Takara didn't leave you out to pasture completely, Cliffjumper. You did get a Masterpiece, kinda, with a red Bumblebee. It is technically the red variant of Bumblebee done as a Masterpiece toy in the same regard as, like, Diaclone variants done as Masterpiece toys. But you know what they were doing. You know what they were going for. So there you go. That's every iteration that I could find. There might be a few more out there because this was such a common occurrence for a while, but you can kind of see why it was a running gag in the fandom for so long. Luckily, Cliffjumper gets a little bit more respect these days. He does get original molds from time to time. Prime was great for that, by the way. But alas, I think this is going to be something that is going to exist for as long as Transformers does, because frankly, it's probably just too easy for them. It probably is. So, that's the list. That's the video for the day. Thank you everyone for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.